so I'm going to do a review of the first two story arcs of the IDW My Little Pony comics, and I'm going to do a review of the first arc, and then later today, hopefully I can get out the review for the second story arc, which I'm really excited to talk about. But anyway, let's talk about the first story arc, The Return of Chrysalis. Now, the pony continuity of the comics is kind of weird, and I'll get into that more when we get to the second volume, the second story arc. But for right now, let's just talk about the first story arc. And this fits really in much continuity. You could say like this came out right after the events of the Camelot Wedding and right between seasons 2 and 3. But more or less, that Chrysalis has returned with the changelings, and what she intends on doing is harnessing the power of Twilight and using it with the power of this comet that is coming by Equestria, and she intends on using the comet's power to amplify her own power. So I think that's an interesting concept right there. The story pretty much plays out that the Cutie Mark Crusaders have been captured by the changelings, and Twilight and her friend, the main six, go out to find them. This comic book is really fun. This is a really good comic book. I love that. Katie Cook, I think is her name. She does a great job on the writing. Everyone is written perfectly. All the characters are in character. Pinky has the most random scenes ever. Like, she just can pull out a party cannon out of nowhere. Pinky is able to defy the laws of physics. Rarity is herself, and everyone else. The first issue is more or less pretty solid of the main six going out to find Chrysalis after she actually the changelings take over the whole town, and it has a secret invasion feel for about the first issue, and then it goes off into almost like the Hobbit kind of journey through all these this magical forest to the Crystal Empire, not Crystal Empire, the Changeling Empire, the Changeling Kingdom. And yeah, the first issue is not much to talk about. It's just a lot of fun. The second issue, however, is when we get into something really interesting, and here's where I get a little more where I have to bring up something. So the second issue is pretty much them encountering a mountain that Rainbow Dash says they can fly over, but then she remembers that not everyone can fly. So what happens is they have to go through this old mine that was once belonged to the Diamond Dogs. What happens next is they encounter a cave troll who plays out a lot like that abominable snowman from Looney Tunes. He even says, "I will call him George." And I was like, oh, that's perfect. And there's actually a nice little, if you look really hard throughout this entire comic book, and I'll bring this up more when we get later on, because there's actually a couple other things I want to bring up that are pretty cool. But more or less, you get little references to other things, like in the cave troll's room, little room when he's brushing the ponies with a brush. Yeah, he's a typical giant brony, but meh. And what happens is he you see on his shelf, there's a giant Optimus Prime figure. Also, you also get there's cameos of Blues Brothers ponies, and there's a Red Lantern pony in the background somewhere. You also get Derpy. Derpy's amazing, because when Derpy gets captured by the changelings, the changeling that turns into her has perfect eyes, and then the other changeling right next to him just punches him in the face and makes his eyes go all loopy. So, anywho, what was I going to say next? I just totally, my brain just shut off. Like I said, this is a very humorous comic. I mean, there are some good elements in here. There's actually some scary elements, because Chrysalis actually sometimes Chrysalis is drawn very terrifying, like with fangs, and she's drooling. And other times she has this happy face on of how delighted she is at watching the main six try to go through all these perils. And there's actually this one face where she just has the smiley face that I was like, oh my god, I want that as a button. But here's where I got to bring up a big problem. When the changelings cause a cave-in at the mines, and what happens is the ponies get separated into different groups: Twilight with Fluttershy, Pinkie Pie with Rainbow Dash, and Applejack with Rarity. And what happens is that the changelings start shapeshifting into the other members of the main six and start calling names at the other ponies. And then they get pissed off when they all meet each other, the real selves meet each other, and start yelling at each other. And here's where I was like, really? Hang on, now hold up. you guys know you're fighting changelings, right? So how do you not know that these are the changelings that are causing this? And they bring this up in the next issue. Like, Rainbow Dash says, oh, it was probably the changelings the whole time. Why'd we get pissed off in the first place? And then they never bring it up again. Oh, well. But, like, yeah, they should have figured out that... They should have really figured out that that wasn't their friends doing this. And I was kind of like, really? We're going to go down that route? But, yeah, that's the weird part, is that they all get pissed off at one another. Do they just really get their feelings hurt that quick? I don't know. But shouldn't they have known what they're fighting is changelings and their main thing is to shapeshift? Just saying. But then they encounter giant spiders, they all become friends real quick, and when they leave the mine after beating the giant spiders with the cave troll's help, which also the giant spiders, by the way, are actually really fun. They just don't have any dialogue. They have they have spiders with cutie marks on their abdomens, which is weird, and they look like a bunch of Brooklyn, you know, those stereotypical, hey, we'll beat you up now, or Cockney, you know, those old-timey Cockney bullies or thugs. Yeah, they look like that. There's also a derpy spider, which I thought was hilarious. And then the cave troll comes in, saves them, and then they get out, and then they start fighting again. They stop being friends, and they just start fighting again, and they all split up in their respective groups. And then it just turns into the third issue is just them running through the forest from all these different monsters. They encounter Chupacabra, they encounter vampire jackalopes. Let me say that again. Vampire jackalopes attack the main six. What? But it was hilarious. And also, we get a backstory of how the changelings and Chrysalis, what happened to them after the events of the Canterlot wedding. It turns out that they ended up in a little happy village full of people who just love people. Of little kitten people who love people. And there's actually this really disturbing scene where they what was I going to say? They end up in a... where they're the Cutie Mark Crusaders who were captured by Chrysalis. I'm totally sorry again. I lost my train of thought. But what happens is Chrysalis is showing them one of the little kittens that love them, so the changeling so much, and she kills it. Like on panel, she kills it. Like it just turns into a giant bloody stain. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And also, it's hilarious that Fluttershy, when they run into the Chupacabra and it starts fighting the vampire jackalopes, Fluttershy just starts going, oh, it's amazing. Vampire jackalopes and chupacabras are mortal enemies. They won't stop fighting until one of them is dead. It's amazing. I'm not kidding. That's what Fluttershy says. What? But again, I guess it's just like that's supposed to be really funny. And also, Pinkie Pie is really intelligent. She shows how smart she is throughout this entire comic. But the third issue is just them getting back and like, oh, we're sorry the whole time. And running from monsters. And it's funny that Rainbow Dash actually brings it up that it's like, why is it always monsters that we're running into? Can we run into anything nice? And then the fourth issue, and this is where more references come in, because the changelings try to confuse the ponies all through this maze of different infinite stairs, and they enter each door, and there's a horror in each door. And here's the best part. When they're going through all the doors, they encounter villains from movies, which is hilarious. Like, Applejack opens a door, and there's the villain from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Fluttershy opens a door, and there's a ponified version of Pennywise from It. And then Fluttershy, Rarity opens a door, and it's the Phantom of the Opera, a pony version of the Phantom of the Opera. There's also nice little references throughout the whole thing. Like, later on, I'm going to say this much. Princess Celestia says that during the comet, everything that has magic-based abilities their powers start amplifying, and her and Spike actually fought giant mutant cockatrices throughout Ponyville, and we get a little backstory at the end of the fourth issue. And also, she makes a quick mention that she had to go one-on-one with a giant Stave Puff pony version of the Stave Puff Marshmallow Man in Manhattan, and I'm like, why couldn't we get an image of that? Really? So, there's that. But long story short, Twilight and Chrysalis fight. They all win. Everybody goes happy. The magic of friendship saves everybody. Ta-da! But all in all, I really like this story. It's really fun. I love the little references. I love how Katie Cook is just writing just a fun story along with these epic stories. And I know it gets a lot. This story is kind of despite the second issue, which has that whole moment of them turning on each other just to get back together. The third issue, and then they defeat Chrysalis in the next issue. It's all right, but it's nothing compared to like the second issue. That's where, and I haven't. I'm gonna do, like I said, I'm gonna do a review on that later on, and it's supposed to be more epic, but it's also kind of a weird continuity problem also. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. You guys tell me what you think, and I will see you guys later.